So after the game, Giannis didn't hold back talking to Eric Name, saying in part, there's so many things that we have to do in order for us to be better. And it starts with, we have to want it. Like, enough with the talking, enough with the, our stuff don't stink mentality. Do we really want it? Are we putting in the work? Guys are tired. That's an excuse. New coach, excuse. New system, excuse. New defense, excuse. All of it, it's an excuse. We are not on the track of what we are trying to do. And I feel like the team feels it, and I feel it. Whew. All right, so Giannis really not holding back and all that. Perk, what do you make of his post-game comments?
Well, what's Giannis' excuse? Because at the end of the day, we know that he's going to be a guy that's going to go out there and give you 30. We know that he's going to be in the MVP conversation. But Giannis is also a player that every single season for the last 4 seasons has not only won Defensive Player of the Year, but has been in the conversation. Do you know since November, he's averaging less than a block a game? Giannis Antetokounmpo, the most dominant player in the game today, is averaging since November less than 1 block a game. That's unacceptable. So it starts with him. When I think of Giannis and I think of Anthony Davis, I think of two of the most, dominant bigs defensively that could guard the perimeter and protect the basket. He hasn't done it. So before you start calling out everybody else, right, you got to make sure that you hold yourself accountable and do what you need to do and lead by example.
I think historically the best leaders in sports start with themselves first, like looking from within. How can I be better? Obviously, he's playing at an incredibly high level. He's efficient. He's effective around the basket. He's shooting about 30% from 3. He's getting to the free throw line, but it's like, what can I do? How can I win within the margins to help this team? So I think that's the mentality you have to take. Obviously, the pairing of him and Dame has to be better. The way they play off of each other has to be better.
You're uniquely positioned to know this.
Exactly, right? They have to be able to play off each other better. And I think for Doc, it's about figuring out the rotation, figuring out substitution patterns, to figure out how to allow them to be their best selves in terms of usage, in terms of pick and rolls, in terms of where they're scoring out in the court. I think all those things are going to be important for their success. And then the last part is chemistry and cohesiveness. They have championship aspirations, right? They want to win a championship badly. But the things you have to do in order to win a championship are done behind closed doors. The dinners, right? Walking through plays together, walking through spacing together, and then beating teams like the Memphis Grizzlies, who are very injured, are part of that process. And I think right now, this break is coming at the perfect time for them.
It is hard to win in the NBA with instability. And this is a team that went from Mike Budenholzer to Adrian Griffin to Doc Rivers in almost a historically short window.
Yeah.
And it is hard to just think that all of a sudden Doc Rivers was going to walk in with no practice time, with no training camp, with somebody else's staff and running his own guys in who weren't in the league this year, who had been with it previously. And all of a sudden, you're just going to start getting back on another run in Milwaukee. And that is so much of their situation. And structurally, we could talk about, for everything that was put on Adrian Griffin, about how bad they were defensively, this team was going to be worse defensively. They were built to be worse defensively. And so I think you've seen it kind of go up and tick off defensively since Doc Rivers has come in, but offensively they've dipped again. And CJ said it, so much of this is around the Giannis-Dame dynamic, because until those two are really connected, the rest of it is not going to follow in Milwaukee.
Yeah, but they still have their core. Like, they still have
but their core, I mean, Brooke is older,
Holiday.
Chris is older and more injured. Dame and Giannis, I spoke with Dame before, and I don't mean to cut you off, Perk. I'm very curious your thoughts on this. I spoke to Dame before the return game back to Portland, where you and Damian Lillard shared the floor for 8 seasons together. And I asked him about playing with Giannis, and he said that if he could have picked anybody in the league that he felt like his skill set best complemented, it would have been Giannis Antetokounmpo. So even he was a little bit surprised that they haven't gelled together as quickly as he imagined.
But look over the last week, the last 3 games.
Okay.
You cannot have an impressive win against the defending champs
Yeah, that was
and then
impressive.
get stomped out the next night by the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler, and then all of a sudden go into Memphis and catch a spanking with a Louis belt. That's not how it goes. And so when I'm looking at it right now, yes, okay, they missed Drew Holiday. We get that. But Bobby Portis was there when they won the championship. Brook Lopez was there when they won the championship. Giannis Antetokounmpo was there when they won the championship. And Chris Middleton. We're not talking about young guys. We're talking about seasoned vets that knows what it takes to get it done. Like Doc Rivers, yes, he has to come in with Dave Yeager and impose their will on the coaching, right, in their system. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be that damn hard when you're talking about Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo getting it done in the two-man game. And Giannis is going to have to sacrifice a little bit more. And I've been saying this. At some point, Doc is going to have to take a page out of Darvin Ham's book and put Giannis at the center position like he's doing Anthony Davis and demand that he plays that role.
Oh, and we have seen many teams maybe have at least one eye on everything that's happening in Milwaukee, just wondering if there could be any dominoes that fall in the future. There still is plenty of time for Milwaukee to figure this out, but it's another team, and it's like, okay, All-Star break. It's a good thing we're here. Let's check in on the best in the West who are heading into the All-Star break on a 4-game winning streak. We're talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves, who had a 30-point lead in the first quarter, round up beating the Trailblazers 128-91. That's tied for their largest road win in franchise history. Of course, Anthony Edwards, he scored 34 points to lead 7 Wolves who scored in double figures here. So the Timberwolves, they've been in the NBA for 35 seasons. This is the first time they enter the All-Star break leading the Western Conference. That's pretty remarkable. They're led by Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns. The Wolves, they have multiple players selected to the All-Star game for the first time since 2018. So CJ, you've matched up against every single team in the Western Conference. Has Minnesota been the best team that you have faced?
No, I think Minnesota's a great team. I think they play extremely well. Great home court advantage, a lot of young talent. But in terms of matchups for us, I don't feel like they've been the toughest team to match up against. I think we had more trouble with the Clippers. We had more trouble with the Suns. We had more trouble with Denver in terms of matchups and just our lack of ability to execute throughout an entire game. I think they're a really good team. I think a lot of teams respect them. A lot of players respect them and what they've been able to do from a body of work standpoint. But if I'm just answering your question, it's an obvious no.
You saying you won't smoke with them in the playoffs? That's what you're saying.
I'm saying there's not a lot of teams that want to play a healthy version of the New Orleans Pelicans, including them.
Oh, okay. That's what. Hey, look. That's what I like to hear. But listen, when it comes down to
Am I lying?
Huh?
Am I lying?
No, you're not lying. I was telling you this. I was on my LaToya Luck, and I'm torn between the two of saying whether or not you guys are my sleepers to come out of the West or the Minnesota Timberwolves.
How can a sleeper be the number one?
Yeah, but because no one believes in them, even Vegas.
He said,
right? They're
no
not a
one.
They're not a favorite, but I do believe this, right? I do believe from what they're showing us that they arguably have one of the best starting fives in the game. When I think about they're the only team that has beaten every single contender out there. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks, they beat the Denver Nuggets, they beat the Boston Celtics, they done beat the Clippers. Matter of fact, they own the Clippers. So I'm looking at this young team led by Anthony Edwards, and you know the thing that sticks out to me the most is his leadership. Right, and I said this before, CJ. Jimmy Butler couldn't pull what Anthony Edwards is pulling out of Karl Anthony Towns right now on both ends of the floor. Donovan Mitchell couldn't pull what Anthony Edwards is pulling out of Rudy Gobert right now. They're the number one defensive team in the league. They're playing with a dog and killer mentality, and it's led by this young and upcoming superstar in Anthony Edwards that has an old soul. We don't see that a lot around the league.
Yeah, but I think Anthony Edwards would be the first person to say that it feels like Cat brings out the best in him. He brings out the best in Cat.
Leadership, though, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to put the key in their bag.
It seems like everybody, everything
I'm just
is
thinking about the
now.
Conversations that we've had today in terms of leadership and bring out the best in your teammates.
Because really there are 6 teams. When we take a look at the top here, The Celtics, they have a sizable lead for the top seed in the East, but the West, the top 4 teams, they're kind of bunched up. The Suns, your Pelicans, they have the same records in the 5 and 6 spots. The Suns right now hold the tiebreaker, but you played them a couple of more times. You guys won 7 of your last 8 games to get that tie with Phoenix for the 5th spot. That's despite Zion Williamson struggling a little bit at times, averaging career lows in points and rebounds. But how important is he, the growth you've seen from him in other ways? We were talking about this before. It really impressed me.
Yeah, I think you got to throw the stats out the window. For us in the beginning of the season, it was about health, it's about availability, and us figuring out how to play together consistently as a group. By group, I mean myself, Brandon Ingram, Z. We only played 10 games together last year as a team. So practices, chemistry, execution, spacing, understanding where guys like the ball at down the stretch of games. Like, all those things are important, but you have to play in games to see that. From a growth standpoint, what I like most about what I'm seeing from Z, BI, and our team in general is the accountability we're able to have with each other. We're able to be more vocal. We're able to have those dinners, those hard conversations, the curse you out moments where you need to curse somebody out, and the moments where we're not calling you out, we're calling you up. I think that's a part of it. And the second part, as a father of 2, now you see growth, you see maturity in Z, how he approaches the game, understanding the importance of life outside of basketball, understanding that this game is really important and you have mega superstar talent, but it's about how you approach the game, it's about the little habits. And we talked about stacking days. He's been stacking his days, getting his extra conditioning in, eating properly, sleeping properly. We talked about the importance of him being available later in the season. He's doing those things. And I say throw the stats out at the beginning because we were figuring out how to utilize this roster, how to utilize this team, and his usage was low. His usage is starting to pick up. His conditioning is getting better. We're winning games, and now he's ticking up at the right time in terms of body fat, in terms of conditioning, in terms of how he's being used, in terms of minutes. He's playing back-to-backs now, and I think the accountability is there, the understanding of his greatness is there, and what he can do for not only himself, but for our team in the city of New Orleans.
But I think CJ, he has no choice, but because you're the true definition of a leader and a true professional. I'm watching the kid Murphy. He's in great shape. Jose, we know what he brings to the table. B.I. brings it every night. So if Zion don't follow the lead, he's going to poke out like a sore thumb. Here's my thing. I know how bad y'all want it for him, but how bad do Zion want it for Zion? And my thing is, like, does he care about being great? Does he care that Zion Williamson is not here in Indianapolis right now as an all-star? Like, do Zion Williamson care about this?
I think in past years I wouldn't have been sure how to answer that on national television, but I think I can say with absolute certainty that his actions have demonstrated that he cares. His actions, the work, the consistency. I asked him what he was doing during the break. We talked about 5 games in 7 days that we have coming out of this back-to-back. And we talked about how we have a gap of 6 games in about 14 or 15 days. Shout out to the schedule gods. We're excited about that. But he said, I got treatment in the morning. I have a lift with my stepfather. I got some on-court work, and then I got my tee time schedule. You're talking about a guy that's locked in and understanding that you get your work in first, and then you figure out what's your version of healthy, happy play.
Yeah.
And for him, it's golf. For him, it's his way to get away. But I'm excited about seeing what everybody does. B.I., this is a guy who's been great throughout the year. We've seen what he did in the playoffs 2 years ago when we got in there. Trey getting into rhythm. JV is always available. Herb is shooting over 40 from 3 in his last 70 career games. He's shooting like 50 since December 1st. Obviously, I'm still here. I'm still going to do what I do. But I think our team is built to succeed as long as we're healthy, and I'm excited to see what happens going forward. Shout out to my guy, Najee Marshall, too, man.
Yeah.
Playing well. And Dyson, I hope you get healthy, man, and get back out there soon.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us, that kind of rare insight into your team. We really appreciate that.
I'm on fire.